In a quiet neighborhood in Islamabad, nestled among the greenery and the serenity of the city, lived a woman named Fatima. She was known in the community as a strikingly beautiful woman, with her delicate features, long flowing hair, and graceful demeanor. Married to a successful businessman named Imran, Fatima's life seemed perfect from the outside. Together they had a young son named Ali, who was the light of their lives. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect life, there was a growing darkness. Fatima, once full of love and joy, had changed after her marriage. She had grown distant from her husband and child, becoming increasingly absorbed in her own world. The pressures of maintaining her beauty, her social status, and her image in the eyes of others had taken a toll on her. The demands of motherhood, the responsibilities of a wife, and the expectations of society weighed heavily on her. But instead of facing them, Fatima chose to escape. She became obsessed with her appearance, spending hours in front of the mirror, perfecting every detail of her look. Fatima would often leave Ali in the care of their housemaid, while she attended social gatherings, fashion shows, and parties, where she was always the center of attention. She basked in the admiration of others, using her beauty to charm and captivate those around her. Imran, though a kind and caring husband, was often busy with work, trying to provide the best life for his family. He noticed the changes of Fatima, but was unsure how to address them. He loved her deeply, but found it increasingly difficult to connect with her as she withdrew further into her own world. Ali, too, began to feel the absence of his mother, yearning for her attention and affection. But Fatima was too preoccupied with her own life to notice. One day, Fatima was invited to a high-profile event in the city, a gathering of the most influential and wealthy people in Islamabad. It was an opportunity she couldn't resist, a chance to showcase her beauty and mingle with the elite. She spent the entire day preparing for the event, trying on different dresses, applying makeup, and styling her hair to perfection. Little did she know that this event would mark the beginning of a tragic turn in her life. As she was getting ready to leave, Ali approached her, holding a small toy in his hand. "Mama, will you play with me?" he asked, his big brown eyes full of hope. Fatima barely glanced at him, too focused on her reflection in the mirror. "Not now, Ali. Mama is busy," she replied, her tone dismissive. Ali's face fell, and he quietly walked away, holding back tears. It wasn't the first time his mother had ignored him, but it hurt her just the same. Fatima, however, didn't notice his disappointment. She was too caught up in her excitement about the event. That evening, as Fatima entered the grand hall of the event, she was greeted with admiration and compliments from everyone she met. She smiled and laughed, enjoying the attention and praise. But as the night wore on, something inside her began to shift. Despite the outward glamour, Fatima felt a growing sense of emptiness. The compliments, the admiration, none of it brought her the satisfaction she craved. She began to feel like a hollow shell, beautiful on the outside but void of substance on the inside. As she stood alone in a corner, watching the crowd, Fatima's thoughts drifted into her family, her husband, who was likely still at work, and her son, who was probably asleep by now, having gone to bed without seeing his mother. A pang of guilt pierced her heart, but she quickly brushed it aside, convincing herself that she deserved this life, this intention. But the guilt wouldn't go away. It gnawed at her, growing stronger with each passing moment. The faces of the people around her, once full of admiration, now seemed distant and cold. Fatima began to feel out of place, disconnected from the world she had so desperately tried to belong to. The realization hit her like a wave. She had neglected the most important people in her life, her family, in pursuit of superficial pleasures. Feeling overwhelmed, Fatima left the event early and returned home. As she entered the house, the silence greeted her, a stark contrast to the noise and excitement of the party. She quietly made her way to Ali's room and found him fast asleep, clutching the toy he had shown her earlier. Fatima's heart digged as she watched him sleep, his innocent face so peaceful, unaware of the pain she had caused him. Tears welled up in her eyes as the weight of her neglect finally sank in. She realized how much she had missed, how many precious moments with her son she had lost in her pursuit of vanity. The emptiness she had felt at the party now consumed her, filling her with regret and sorrow. The next morning, Fatima woke up feeling ill. She dismissed it as exhaustion from the previous night and tried to go about her day as usual, but her condition worsened rapidly. She became weak and her skin, once radiant, started to lose its glow. Alarmed, Imran took her to the best doctors, but despite their efforts, they could not diagnose the cause of her illness. As the days turned into weeks, Fatima's health continued to decline. Her beauty faded, replaced by a pale, sickly complexion. Her once lustrous hair began to fall out, and her body grew frail. The woman who had once captivated everyone with her looks was now unrecognizable. With her physical strength waning, Fatima began to reflect on her life. She realized how shallow and meaningless her pursuits had been, how much she had neglected her family, especially Ali. The guilt and regret that had been building up inside her now overwhelmed her, and she turned to prayer, seeking forgiveness for her neglect and vanity. Fatima began to spend her days in prayer, asking Allah for the strength to make amends for her mistakes. She tried to reconnect with Ali, reading to him, playing with him, and spending as much time as she could with him. Ali, though young, sensed the change in his mother and responded with love and affection, grateful to finally have her attention. Imran too noticed the change in Fatima. Despite her illness, she seemed more at peace, more content. He supported her, doing everything he could to care for her and their son. The bond between the family grew stronger, even as Fatima's health continued to decline. One evening, as Fatima lay in bed, too weak to move, she called Ali and Imran to her side. With tears in her eyes, she apologized to them for the pain she had caused, for the years she had spent neglecting them in favor of her own selfish desires. She asked for their forgiveness, hoping that in her final days she could find some measure of peace. Imran and Ali, both in tears, forgave her, assuring her that they loved her and that they were grateful for the time they had together. They prayed with her, holding her hands as she whispered her final prayers. When Fatima passed away that night, it was a quiet, peaceful end to a life that had been filled with turmoil. Her death left a deep void in the lives of her family, but it also brought them closer together, united by the love and forgiveness they had shared in her final moments. However, the peace that Fatima had found in her last days did not extend to her burial. When her body was taken to the cemetery, an eerie event unfolded. As the gravediggers began to lower her body into the ground, they were suddenly overwhelmed by a foul odor that seemed to emanate from the earth itself. The stench was so overpowering that it drove everyone away, leaving the grave incomplete. The imam, sensing that this was no ordinary occurrence, began to pray fervently, asking for Allah's mercy and forgiveness for Fatima's soul. After much prayer and supplication, the burial was finally completed, but the incident left a lasting impression on everyone present. Fatima's story became a lesson for the community, a reminder of the dangers of vanity and neglect, and the importance of cherishing the blessings of family and faith. All her beauty, once the source of her pride, had faded, leaving behind only the memory of a woman who had realized, too late, the true value of the life she had been given. And so, Fatima's tale was passed down, a story of redemption and regret, teaching others the importance of living a life of love, humility, and devotion to Allah and to those who matter.